Keira Flynn-Carson, an English teacher at School Within a School at Brookline High School, is the personification of an amazing English teacher. Keira's enthusiasm for the subject, love and respect for her students, and desire to help other students and teachers is evident in everything that she does. Keira encourages her students to find their unique voice, to dig deep and push themselves, guiding them in authentic learning experiences and moments of real growth. Among the core elements of the BHS program that Keira has had a hand in creating and sustaining are the advisory program, the social justice class, Day of Change, the Sharp Warriors, and many beloved SWS traditions, including monthly lounge shows for faculty and students. As a truly devoted, compassionate, joyful, and impactful educator, it is the BEF's honor to present Keira Flynn-Carson with this year's Caverly Award. It is my pleasure to introduce Anthony Meyer, head of school of Brookline High School, who will say a few words about Keira.
Hello, everyone. Before I say a few words about, more than a few words about Keira, I want to take a moment to just thank the BEF, to thank the board, to thank Liz and Jenny for gathering us for this incredible event. Can we just take a moment and thank them? The atmosphere of this event is critical. This is a time to celebrate the people who do the most important work in our schools, and that is our educators. I want to acknowledge that as many of you came upon the high school today, you might have seen some police cars, and it's not the atmosphere we would like. There was an incident after dismissal that we ended up handling. That's not what I want, because I want us to be here making sure we're keeping our educators front and center, and I think that we're doing that. I also want to acknowledge that when I sat up here, I looked down at my shoes, which look like that, and recalled that I had a pair of dress shoes, and so I'm wearing instead what Dan Bressman termed my clown shoes. In a moment of vulnerability, I share that with you. There are some professional ties I want to acknowledge. Keira and I began in the same year, so this is year 20 for Keira Flynn-Carson, really year 21. Yes. And as I recall, she did her student teaching both at the Pierce School and at the high school. I'm hoping I'm getting at least most of my facts right. And worked with a teacher named Barry Schumann, and that could be a story in and of itself. There we go, Barry Schumann, amazing. Oh my God, that's so great. And it is a story that you might hear. So 20 years of Keira Flynn-Carson, amazing. And it's also not just professional, it's personal. Keira has taught both of my daughters, and I'm going to say a few things about Keira. I think one thing I want to emphasize is that my 20-year-old who is away at college still has on her wall, and her wall is very curated with very few things on it, is a postcard that Keira wrote to her about working with her, who she saw her as, and if I were to read it here, I would be weeping, and so I'm not going to, but I'm incredibly grateful to Keira's support of my daughters, knowing that that's how she teaches and supports each and every kid at Brookline High School. And how is that? You'll hear more from, I'm going to shift in a moment into a few short excerpts from the folks who wrote on her behalf, because I think it's incredibly important to recognize them and to hear bring their voices into this space. But for my part, I would say it is hard to imagine a kinder, more empathic, and caring individual than Keira Flynn-Carson, who benefits our kids and our community, our high school community, and our larger community. Keira is an incredible person to have with kids. I'm going to swear just a little bit and say she is also a facilitator of badassness. And that is important for high school kids, to understand that you can balance that kindness, that empathy with disruption, with trying to work on systems that need work, to try to work with kids who need to be encouraged and emboldened. And Keira does it as well as anyone I've known, that incredible balance. So let's read a couple of excerpts. And you heard a little bit of this, but this is from Dan Bressman, who is the coordinator of SWS. Keira has been a devoted and beloved teacher, serving at the peer school, the high school, and in SWS. She has led multiple school-wide programs initiatives, and she has been the person that numerous students credit for their own intellectual awakenings. Keira has been a special education teacher and liaison, an English teacher, a co-founder and early leader of the BHS Advisory Program, the Innovation Fellow with the Innovation Fund, the advisor to Sharp Warriors, as you heard, leading advocate for materials fee, the leader of co-curricular programming in SWS. The list goes on. The resume is impossible to capture. She has done so much in her 20 years. Now this from Dr. Jen Martin, currently our social studies chair, but a longtime colleague of Keira's, both with advisory and in SWS. Keira is widely known for her extreme kindness. When I say extreme, I really mean it. She is the first person to bake cookies for her colleagues or an entire class of students. She is someone who genuinely cares about the answer to the question, "Hi, how are you?" She treats her students with the exact same care and kindness that she does her closest friends and family. She is one of the most humane people I know, and she approaches every situation with care and curiosity. There is a reason why kids simply hang out in her room just to feel close to someone who cares deeply about them as a whole person. That bears repeating, the power of that sentence. There is a reason why kids simply hang out in Keira's room just to feel close, I would argue, to be close to someone who cares deeply about them as a whole person. That's what it's about. This from Ben Berman and Roger Grandy, colleagues in various ways. Last May, the SWS seniors were sharing their finales, a final paper that asked students to reflect on their time in SWS before graduating. It was getting late when a student stood up, her hands shaking as she held her paper, and shared a deeply vulnerable story about the time that she'd gotten caught cheating on a math test during her junior year. She described her math teacher's disappointment in her and her own fears about the academic consequences, but mostly she focused on the intense shame that she felt for having made such a horrible decision. But she also described how in her lowest moment, she walked up the stairs to Keira's room and to confess to what she had done and what it meant to have a mentor like Keira in that moment, someone who would both hold her accountable for her mistake and still find a reason to believe in her, someone who could help her separate what she'd done from who she was. She finished reading her reflection, crying through most of it, then walked over to Keira and hugged her with all of her might. It was one of those once-in-a-lifetime moments that you might expect to see on an ABC after-school special or a Disney TV show, except when you work with Keira Flynn-Carson, you realize these once-in-a-lifetime moments seem to somehow keep happening again and again and again, and that is because Keira is a once-in-a-lifetime teacher who teaches the whole student. Last, from Karen Harris, longtime English teacher at Brookline High School who retired in 2019 and is with us today. It's titled Rigor for All Students. Keira's special education background and experience raises everyone's game in her classroom. She has such deep pedagogical content knowledge. This enables her to assess and meet students where they are and provide whatever scaffolding and encouragement and tough love and modifications and attention each student needs to be a true scholar and scholarly presence in the classroom. In SWS, the expectation is that students will be held accountable by other students, that they will be engaged for the sake of learning and for the good of the classroom community, and they are responsible for the class as active participants and meaning makers. Teaching in a place like this, and in fact in a place like BHS, requires the confidence to share some power with students. It demands that teachers know students well in order to know when and how much to push them and when to back off a bit. There's more, but I think this is about hearing from Keira, so I want to say thank you to the colleagues who wrote on her behalf for sharing those words with all of us. It is my honor to introduce Keira Flynn-Carson as the BHS Caverly Award winner.
This is overwhelming in the most beautiful way possible. Okay. One trait has remained consistent since I was 15 years old, and that is my love of mixtapes and playlists. I'd spend afternoons on the floor of my parents' bedroom queuing up songs, choosing just the right order, holding 2 fingers down on the record and play buttons of my dad's double cassette decks, and designing covers for the mixes that I give to my friends. Now I create Spotify playlists of the songs I fall in love with each season. Playlists are the way that I mark feelings, important moments, and relationships. So here in this important moment for me is my Caverly mixtape. Songs and stories that shape who I am and why and how I teach. Track 1, Teach Your Children by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young is for my parents. My dad says that when he was growing up, Ireland raised its sons for export. He moved to Boston with very little and created a beautiful life. He takes pride in the fact that as a carpenter, he built things that lasted. Homes in Brookline, public housing units in Dudley Square, offices and labs at Deaconess Hospital. At night and on weekends, as a drummer, he was the backbeat to people's weddings, anniversaries, and scores of Irish cultural events. While my dad worked hard, it was never about amassing wealth. He worked in order to give us stability, opportunity, and memories. He showed me that a life with purpose involves finding out what you are good at and doing it with and for people you care about. As for my mom, I don't ever recall seeing her sit and watch a movie or TV show without doing something else at the same time. Bills, sewing, embroidery. She was productive and useful in all of her minutes. She wallpapered our kitchen, climbed ladders to clean out gutters, and mulched and weeded our backyard. I watched her become empowered as she tinkered and toiled. She inspired the fearless experimenter in me. My mom taught me and my siblings that we are not special. This was not an act of cruelty. It was a democratizing mindset. No one is more special than you, and you are no more special than anyone else. It was also her defense against entitlement, a perspective that made me grateful for what I got and shaped me to invest in building character and connection rather than gaining status. After I graduated from high school, my mom got her associate's degree and became a travel agent. Her clients were her own neighbors and community members. She knew their lives and respected their budgets. She cared so deeply about crafting these opportunities for her clients that even just a few days before she died of lung cancer, she was in her office and on the phone trying to finalize the details of their trips. She measured her success in the quality of the relationships she built. My mom and dad prioritized purpose and relationships ahead of achievement and money. In doing so, they taught me that the moves you make towards power often come at the cost of connection. Their door was always open to friends and friends of friends, with a cozy bed and a delicious dessert waiting. From them, I learned that selfless care for its own sake is richly rewarding. They did teach their children well. Okay, track 2, Reach Out, I'll Be There by the Four Tops is for Frank Barbuto. Frank Barbuto, my Mike Dukakis lookalike 8th grade math teacher, was passionate about math, coaching sports, and Motown. He told us everything we needed to know about love we could learn from Smokey Robinson songs, and taught us not just why the formula worked, but why it was interesting. And while I didn't love math, I certainly loved him. We felt seen and cared for, so when he pushed us, we believed we could handle it. Because he was the Dedham High track coach, he also spent the year casting us in our future roles on the team. After class, he would tell me what a great hurdler and high jumper he thought I could be. No one would have taken me for an athlete, never mind one with real potential. But Mr. Barbuto saw me in the role and helped me see myself in it too. I then spent 4 years on his team, became the captain of indoor and outdoor track, and even tied the school record for the high jump, all because Mr. Barbuto made me believe in the version that he saw. He taught me the importance of encouragement and the fruitfulness of a mentoring relationship that grows over multiple years. When the Four Tops sing "I'll Be There," I think of how much he really was for 5 formative years. Track 3, The Marriage of Figaro from Mozart, is for Huck Gutman. When I walked into Professor Huck Gutman's contemporary poetry class, it was love at first listen. When he read poems by John Berryman, Etheridge Knight, or Maxine Kumin, he made us feel things, the power of the words and the power of the writer controlling the rhythm of those words. But in our first class, he walked us outside, took a photo of each of us under a tree, and asked us to write down our hobbies and interests on a note card he stapled to our Polaroid. He then spent the semester showing up to and asking about our games, fundraisers, and shows. One night, Huck Gutman showed up at Club Metronome to watch me play drums in my Riot Girl band. This classical music lover sat through my punk rock set with a smile on his face and congratulated me after the show with genuine delight. This solidified my teaching ethos. A teacher who wanted to know students outside of the class as well as through the beautiful, challenging, and activist-minded work of the course. He taught us that poetry was about noticing for both the writer and the reader. It turns out good teaching is essentially about noticing too. Huck Gutman listened to punk for me, so I offer one of his classical favorites in return. Track 4, Survivor by Destiny's Child, is for my Germaine Lawrence school students. One of my first teaching jobs was at a residential treatment center for teen girls who had committed violent or sex offenses and who also had experienced considerable trauma. I was 24 years old, and my sheltered and optimistic worldview confronted the realities of the abuse and violence my students had experienced and also perpetuated. I wanted them to see that books could give them opportunities to process their experience and feelings, that Beowulf was actually deeply relevant to their personal and therapeutic goals. We had powerful discussions. They hated the bluest eyes Charlie Breedlove, and they had compassion for him. They felt deeply connected to Charlie because they too were simultaneous victims and perpetrators. I got to watch as they found a book that helped them see their lives in challenging and healing ways, that allowed them to write about and discuss their own situation through the safe distance of a text. Those kids taught me to shoot higher than just a skills-based classroom, that while I wanted my students to learn to read and write well, what I really wanted for them was to see the systems and factors that limited them, to see themselves as capable thinkers and change makers, and to start thinking about how to advocate for and liberate themselves. They were true survivors, and we made each other stronger. Track 5, Run the World's Girl by Beyonce, is for my Pierce School work moms. I started teaching at Pierce in 2001 and was given the gift of the most inspiring, kind, and funny work moms a young teacher could possibly hope for. Piper Smith Mumford was genuinely interested in supporting and developing my growth, even offering me my first English class when I wasn't yet certified. Kim Manasevit became my confidant, processing the daily interactions that would have kept me up at night if she hadn't skillfully counseled me in my anxious or self-doubting moments. And Sally Schumann and Gail Van Hatten modeled the magical combination of open-hearted love for kids and the tireless ability to fight for what kids, especially the most vulnerable, need. Their actions revealed that a good education should afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. Some kids do deserve more time, more resources, and more opportunities. Equity and repairing injustice was important work, and they did it one student, one class, and one policy at a time. Pierce School was infused with powerful love and care Those women were badass school leaders, Beyonce worthy. Track 6, Close to You by the Carpenters for the SWS staff. Joining the SWS staff was less like starting a new job and more like being adopted by a loving family. They welcomed me into their homes and families. The beginnings of staff meetings were reserved for caring life updates and chatting about which former student someone had seen for a coffee date, at a wedding, or on a visit to meet their new baby. I learned that the greatest joy of being an SWS teacher was the legacy of connection forged in our years learning together and enjoyed over the course of a life, past graduation, past retirement. I formed my lifelong friendship with my wise, playful, badass SWS English colleague, Karen Harris. She would rest her head on my shoulder during town meetings. We would spoon each other on the SWS overnight on the air mattress she'd bring for us to share. And she was the person I called to come to the hospital when my daughter Awen was born, and I was afraid to buckle her tiny premature frame into a car seat for the first time. Karen's supportive friendship, her insightful curriculum ideas, her desire to share in my successes, and also to be honest and direct when she sees me spiraling in self-doubt, continues to help me evolve as a person and a teacher. The entire SWS staff are much more than colleagues to me. I love, respect, and enjoy them. So Karen Carpenter for the sweet closeness of my SWS family. Track 7, The Monkey versus the Robot by Piebald, is for Dan Bresman. The chorus of this song joyfully belts, "We have the best job ever. Yeah, we really got lucky." This resonates so deeply for me. And a major reason I feel this way is Dan Bresman. I remember sitting on a panel that Bob Weintraub organized to identify what kind of leadership we sought in our new superintendent. What came up repeatedly was the idea that servant leadership is the ideal, when leaders go to their staff to ask, "What do you need?" and then take action to provide the support that allows teachers and leaders to sustain the demands of this job. Dan Bresman, with his big heart, vast skill set, and giant toolbox, acts like the blindside tackle on a football team, who Keith Thomas tells me always protects the quarterback, especially from what they can't see coming. Dan protects teachers from the frustrating bureaucracy that can bog us down. He doesn't just allow me to be the kind of teacher I want to be, he clears the path to make it happen. I remember looking at him from across the crowded SWS lounge when he got hired and saying, "Let's work together for the next 30 years. And I'm so grateful that it looks like we really will. Track 8, Rooftops by Hot Water Music, is for Jessie. When I meet BHS 9th grade math teachers and they realize that Jessie Carson, beloved 8th grade Pierce math teacher, is my husband, they always say, "My students speak so fondly of him," or "He's the name we hear most often about having positive middle school math experiences." Jessie keeps his classroom stocked with Trader Joe's snacks for the after-school crew that hangs out in his room daily. Sometimes to do math, sometimes just to be known and cared about. He's an active mentor in the Pierce Partners program, and he spends hours every night retooling lessons, communicating with families, and planning interventions. His patience, as I spend many nights at SWS events or meet up with former students, has allowed me the time to build the connections that are so enriching for me, and I am eternally grateful. The lyric in this song by one of Jessie's favorite bands says, "We are making more old days." After all of our years together, reflecting on and reminiscing about not just our lives and parenting together, but our decades of teaching and our shared students is a gift. Track 9, We Are Going to Be Friends by the White Stripes, is for the BSSCC BFF parents. My daughter's age just so happens to align with the children of some of the most caring, dedicated teachers in the district, Roger Grandy, Danielle Rubina, and Lex and Keith Thomas. When our kids joined the Brookline School Staff Child Care Center, I never imagined we would grow to become an almost communal family. We sit over a fabulous Greek spread Lex lays out in Danielle's kitchen and discuss parenting, but our focus often turns to how to get our students out of the transactional culture of comparison and competition that leads to anxious perseveration about college, gaming the system, making decisions that sacrifice authentic learning and meaningful risk-taking, and deteriorates students' mental health. As both teachers and parents in the Brookline schools, thanks to the material fee and METCO programs, we are doubly invested in the education provided here. Our many years of experience give us enough context to have deep concern when we see the district value individual achievement over collective responsibility and centering equity, justice, and ethics. These are teachers with huge hearts who dedicate themselves to making real change. This song says, I can see that we are going to be friends, but in truth, I had no idea how much I would grow to treasure this crew. Track 10, Magic, Olivia Newton-John, you know I had to, is for my SWS students. In Bell Hook's book, Teaching to Transgress, she argues that a transformational classroom doesn't happen unless the people in it fall in love a little bit. By my accounting, I have fallen in love with the hearts and minds of over 1,000 students. And I have watched most of them fall in love with each other, at least pedagogically. Sometimes also in love. When I try to explain SWS to my friends, I evoke the Great British Baking Show, where everyone is genuinely trying to do their best, yet they both support and celebrate each other's accomplishments. SWS is the Great British Baking Show of school programs. Students genuinely get to know each other. Wait, I lost my place. Get to know each other's work. They express pride in their peers when they see them improve in their thinking and writing. They develop writers' crushes on each other and feel inspired to revise and work harder. In my 20 years in SWS, I have witnessed the absolute magic of watching strangers transition into groups that bravely, vulnerably share ideas and papers, cry, and even ballroom dance together. Magic. I recently read that a common trait amongst happy people is that they had to do a lot of chores when they were young, because it taught them not just that they were capable, but that they were meaningful contributors to their families. I watch as my students make playful, wise, deeply intellectual, and challenging contributions to our SWS family. When they do their chores in class and through their community leadership, I watch them develop their understanding that they are important here because they are. In the song Magic, Olivia Newton-John sings, "You have to believe we are magic, nothing can stand in our way." This line makes me think about the open mic shows we have in our lounge, where I see kids work up the courage to sing or play a song for the first time, and then finish, only to hear uproarious applause, even if they stumbled, especially if they stumbled. What might we all be able to achieve if we were surrounded by people who believed so sincerely in each other's magic? Do we do it perfectly all the time? Hell no. But when we keep it as our North Star, we are all the better for it. Okay, we're about halfway there. No, I'm stealing Dan Bresman's favorite graduation joke. Track 11, "The Best Day" by Taylor Swift is for Awen. My daughter Awen has been my most profound teacher. She has approached countless tasks with pragmatic diligence. When she was 18 months old at the Cypress Playground, she examined the monkey bars with a look of determination, rivaled by a scientist on the edge of an important discovery. She'd attempt to reverse, fall, and unshaken dust herself off and ready herself for the next attempt, seeming to know even then that the only thing between her and any goal she wants to achieve is effort, practice, patience, and time. Though she is now only 13, she has designed and built a reading nook, starred in plays, upholstered a chair, run a fundraising bakery, and is a loving, responsible babysitter. She sees the best in the people around her, celebrates her friends in thoughtful ways, notices every baby and every cute animal, and is brave enough to defend her friends or teachers when she hears someone criticize them in a way she sees as unfair. When I need to explain things about our equal parts beautiful and broken world to her, it reminds me that if I want the world to be better for her and to her, my way to do something about it is inviting students to look beyond their individual needs and use their skills to improve their communities. It is Awen who guides the ethics of my teaching now, who drives me to create change in our school, in our community, and in our world. In this song, Taylor Swift thanks her mother for giving her beautiful moments of joy and support while other parts of her life are hard. Awen, you give me my best days, especially when things are hard. Being your mom is my biggest inspiration. So there they are, 11 tracks, the earworms I never want to get out of my head. I am so grateful for the Brookline Education Foundation for all they do to support teachers in Brookline and for celebrating teachers in this beautiful way. Seeing you all walk into my classroom with flowers is the joyful bonus track on my playlist, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.